Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Dear students, Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to the course Global Communication. Today I'm going to discuss with you a topic infrastructure for international communication. In this topic I will discuss many things, but let's start it from a term infrastructure. The term infrastructure generally describes large social overhead capital such as roads, bridges, facilities, electricity generations and distributions, and also a communication networks. The general characteristic of these types of infrastructure capital are such that the development and upgrading of these infrastructure system requires large amounts of long-term investment, and they generate network externity, which means that it will benefit the number of users connected to the infrastructure network. It will increase. These infrastructure system can be owned either by the public or by the private sector. Since investment in infrastructure systems are highly risky, public financing is more common than private financing. So therefore, the existence econometric studies in the area focus primarily on publicly owned infrastructure system. However, it is also important to evaluate the contributions of various types of infrastructure capital to growth of output and productivity, irrespective of whether they are publicly or privately owned. Communication infrastructure refers to the backbone of communication system upon which various broadcasting and telecommunication services are operated. This can be built from copper cable, fiber, or wireless technologies utilizing the radio frequency spectrum, such as the microwave and satellite. The infrastructure is the core component that connects upstream production, such as the voice, data, and audio-visual services, with the downstream consumers. In this lecture, I am going to discuss about the infrastructure of international communications, which rules and treats created and established by the International Telecommunication Union and World Trade Organization, where they were the only suitable for the transnational cooperation. I will focus on the privatization of telecommunication. At first, in the beginnings of the 20th century, all telecommunication infrastructures and bases were owned and controlled by the states, and the regulations, rules, and laws were all globally monopolized by the International Telegraph Union, and was giving the floor to single state-owned corporations to have complete access and control, such as the British Post Office in Britain. But in 1980s, the International Telegraph Union, were criticized for creating great limitations in technological innovations and development in this field. But in 1984, the US President, Ronald Reagan, he launched the open sky policy, which encouraged the privatizations of the telecommunication industry and cut off the state monopolies, thing that affected Margaret Thatcher to give 51% of the British telecommunication the chance to become private in 1985. In 1990, and as a follow-up to all these events, the Post, Telegraph, and Telecommunications was obliged to open new opportunities for the private sector in this industry worldwide, and cut off or diminish the governments from monopolizing this industry and give new opportunities to the private sector and leave room for new ideas, innovations, and especially technological novelties. These privatizations resulted on different events and the creation of different processes such as the free trade in communication products and services by the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, adding to the Uruguay Act for Intellectual Property Right. Moreover, World Trade Organization thinks this free flow of information will have a great positive impact on the economy. The second result of the privatization of telecommunication can be viewed as the liberalizations of the telecom sector by the ITU, which means International Telegraph Union, which was based on the concept of telecommunication as public utility with operators having obligations to provide a universal service with a policy of cooperations, not competition. The ITU supported restrictions on ownership of and control over telecom operations. In contrast to the new liberal telecommunication agenda. As a follow up to this privatization, it is important to create new laws and have new rights and give new responsibilities for the private sector. That is why in 1998, the World Administrative Radio Conferences, these conferences was held by the ITU. But we can see that all these laws and regulations regarding the privatizations of telecommunications were beneficiary for the Western and developed countries more than others. I think that it is very important to create an international base for communication to link the world together with globalization and shrink the gap that third countries have with the development once that is still existence nowadays. But I believe that by giving the chance to private sectors to create and innovate will give great opportunities for development. In the 21st century, we are noticing a great number of sources of informations that have exceeded the formal format of traditional communication, like, for example, e-media and the new trend of electronic radios and television stations that revolutionized the flow of information and global communication. These, I think, are a great example of the results of the privatizations of telecommunication in long term. Let me talk about the satellite-based technology. The global communication infrastructure is the first global satellite communications network based on very small aperture terminal technology, which is the VSAT. It is a setup on the ground called earth stations. The earth stations allows for communication via a satellite. It employs a dish antenna to send and receive signals and an interface to a PC, to a computer. As you all know that more than 200, it's almost 250 VSAT links have been established so far to ensure communications with the IMS monitoring facilities and national data centers, which is the NDC. The number continues to increase with more IMS stations being built. Each station needs to be equipped with communication devices, which will enable the sending of data for analyzing to the IDC and antenna. When several IMS monitoring stations are co-located, they use one VSAT setup for the communication needs of all stations. So VSATs connects to 6 communication satellites, which are located at a height of about 36,000 kilometers above the equator. The satellites are geostationaries, which means that they rotate along with the Earth. So, three of the satellites cover the area of the Atlantic, Pacific, and Indian Oceans. The other three satellites are stations above the North America, Europe, and the North Pacific region to provide for a more efficient coverage of the northern hemispheres. So there is a question of how to create a global communication infrastructure. Here I will discuss that the state was responsible to monitor and have the total control over the telecommunication and information transmitted. However, the world knew a major shift in the term of information privatization. Since more corporations demand means of communication, they pressured to have a reduced price for the use of communication means. Hence, companies opposed the government to have the full control over the telecommunication, and they demand to have a competitive environment to provide the telecommunication as a service. While I read the free trade in communication, I am wondering how it worked out to adapt to the Moroccan culture. The Moroccan culture is known to care a lot about individual privacy. A little number of people who would share videos of their daily life on the internet. I mean little number of people who share their privacy to others. In fact, most people of Morocco prefer to have their life private and inaccessible to the public. For example, when two people salute each other, they often share that they are doing well, even though they are not doing fine. The free flow of information might increase Moroccan economy. However, it might also lead us to lose our identity. Providing free market will cause us to lose our identity and adopt the Western identity and culture at the cost of having advanced technological in our country. The cost of losing our culture and identity might be expensive and not worth having technological advancement. Introducing free flow of information might lead us to be vulnerable to the Western marketing and sales. So this leads us to be independent to the Western policies and lose our own freedom. People usually ask that why is communication infrastructure important? You should say that communication infrastructure is best understood as the technology, products, and network connections that allow for the transmission of communications over large distances, from single purpose networks to the advent of converged multi-purpose networks. The category is continually evolving as new infrastructure capabilities emerge. They will enable the use of cutting edge technologies to power businesses innovations. I'm going to discuss with you the evaluation of communication infrastructure. We usually send voice messages or audio file, data, and video to other people. These once completely singular communication media are now commonly deployed across one converged networks. So this integration of multiple media is increasingly important to enterprises as they pursue ways to optimize expenditure, minimize operational cost, and also it maximize the scope of their project. As new end-to-end technologies are developed to exploit the availability of high-speed, high-capacity networks, maintaining the infrastructure integrity is critical to the company's success. Whether it is a customer based product or an operational solution being deployed, each new project hangs on the ability of the existence communication infrastructure to reliably support the proposed innovations. There are different advantages and disadvantages of telecommunication. Advancement in telecommunication, I'm going to discuss first the advancement and later the disadvantages. So advancement in telecommunication technologies have greatly impacted on the way people interact with each other at a global level. Nowadays, individuals and businesses can communicate easily through voice calls, video calls, and data sharing applications. So businesses have particularly taken advantage of teleconferencing, video conferences, and video calling system to steer collaborations among employees. By adopting a sophisticated telecommunication system, many businesses they have realized improved productivity, better customer services, and increased growth. And this lecture we are going to look at the advantages and disadvantages. So the first advantage is to improve efficiency. It means that the latest telecommunication devices and networks have made easier for employees to send and receive data from different locations in real time. A business can even share information with customers, suppliers, and partners via a live video feed. All these players can connect and interact through voice calls, emails, and video conferences among other platforms. As you all know that in these apps, it's almost to host up to 100 participants in a meeting for free, which allows employees to discuss important work related issues conveniently. The second advantage is the inspire collaboration. Telecommunication is an important aspect when it comes to executing cross-team collaborations in a company or in any organization. With the use of technologies such as video calling, video conferences, and telepresence video streaming, employees working in different departments or separate locations can work together quite effortlessly. The next advantage is that bring flexibility to the workplace. It means that telecommunication offers a range of flexible work options which company employees can adopt. With the use of video conference and video calling system, employees can work from home or join in any corporate meetings from anywhere at any time. So employees carrying out computer-based tasks can particularly enjoy working from home as they can finish their projects online from anywhere. The next advantage is the save time, which means that with the use of video calls and video conferences, inviting people to join in a virtual meeting space is a matter of minutes. All the host needs to do is to invite attendance through email or video call them on their smartphones. So that's way finding and connecting employees based in different locations. It's convenient to talk. The person hosting a meeting can determine the persons who are available online by checking on their presences. Most telecommunication platforms allow users to post messages on their accounts to indicate the status of their presence, like busy, free for calls, away, and many more. So let's talk about the disadvantages. The first disadvantage is that to eliminate face-to-face contact. Here, adopting telecommunication system may allow company employees to interact from different locations, but it doesn't offer colleagues a chance to enjoy a one-to-one talk. Most of the meetings held over video conferences systems are mostly businesses or project oriented, and they don't allow for socializations that increases bad relationship at work. something that may affect businesses' performance in the future. The next disadvantage is that it increases the communication cost of a company. Acquiring and setting up telecommunication equipment or software may require a huge budget, right from high quality webcams to huge LCD screens or through sophisticated video conferences softwares. A business can really spend a lot in getting everything set up. In essence, setting up a telecommunication system might bring convenience and flexibility, but it may lead to increased cost in long term. The third disadvantage is lead to isolation between employers and their employees. It means that the use of telecommunication system has encouraged many employers and employees to adopt the telecommunicating or work from home job format. This mode of working keeps employers and employees apart, something that might hurt the performance of a business. Though most companies they organize for physical meetings periodically, it's still not enough to address the underlying work issues that may lead to partial or even complete isolation among employees or employers. The last disadvantage is that it increases vulnerability to information hacking and attacks. One of the major problems associated with the use of the telecommunication system is security attacks. With sensitive data being transmitted and shared over the internet and other networks, there is a possibilities that people will try to hack it, either for their own pleasure or for the use by the competition. And in order to counter that, system users might need to update passwords periodically or invest in advanced data encryptions that will make communication through video conferences, teleconferences, video calls. These are unsafe and costly to a large extent. I think that's enough for today. I will come up with a next topic. So thank you for watching my videos. Best of luck.